Planet Dolan.
Who got a $350,000 piece of government equipment in the mail on accident? Who successfully mailed himself out of slavery? Here are 10 of the most unusual, dangerous, and sometimes hilarious things ever sent through the mail. I'm Hellbent, and today I'll be your narrator. Number 10. Children. In 1913, the United States Postal Service made the game-changing decision to start allowing small packages and parcels to be shipped instead of just letters. One family from the Ohio town of Batavia stretched the idea of what they meant by small parcel and mailed their son to a relative a mile down the road. This was only the first of several documented cases of families mailing their children. Eventually, the Postmaster General stepped in and restricted people from using the Postal Service like an early 20th century Uber for their kids. Number 9. An entire bank. Families mailing kids weren't the only ones who found an exploit in the Parcel Post Service's introduction in 1913. William Horace Coulthard, a businessman in the Utah state of Vernal, was looking to build a bank, but the nearest supplier of the pressed bricks he wanted was in Salt Lake City, about 125 miles away. Coulthard did some calculating and figured out that the cheapest way for him to get the bricks was to get them all mailed to him, one 50-pound parcel at a time. Because of rough terrain, parcel post from Salt Lake City to Vernal had to go way out of the way on 2 different railroads, even crossing into Colorado and back. Partially because of the brick parcels, the government lost between $25,000 and $30,000 a year mailing packages to Vernal. Number 8. Live scorpions. The United Kingdom introduced parcel post in 1883, about 30 years earlier than it came to the United States. And it had its own set of problems, as people immediately set to mailing things that were potentially harmful, both to the package and the mail carrier. One well-documented case is a package of live scorpions. The Royal Mail banned the delivery of live creatures without advance notice and consent in 1903. But while it's heavily regulated and restricted, you can still send live scorpions through the mail in the United States. Number 7. Smallpox. The fear of chemical or biological weapons being sent through the mail is one that crops up every time somebody finds white powder in an envelope. But in the 1850s, an article in the New York Times detailed that smallpox in the mail was actually happening. In specific, smallpox samples were being delivered to research labs through the mail, sometimes in secret to avoid additional postage. Number 6. Chameleon. In 1954, a boy from Ohio put his pet chameleon into an envelope with a letter that said,
"I am sending my pet chameleon because I live in Foresta, Ohio, and it's too cold for him here. Will you please let him loose?"
The Postmaster General in Florida, who received the envelope, released the chameleon and mailed a letter back to the boy telling him that his pet had made it just fine. Number 5. Skis and dead fish. In the year 2000, an unusual project was undertaken by a group of amateur researchers. The task was a simple one: find the weirdest, most unusual objects imaginable and try to mail them. The objects ranged from strange to pointless to suspicious, and all of them were either sent unwrapped or in clear containers, so there was no question as to what was inside. Out of 28 unusual items, 18 were mailed successfully, including a ski, a dead fish, a deer leg, a human tooth, a clear box full of sand, and a rancid wheel of cheese.
Cheese.
Number 4. Bricks. The whole mailing bricks to build a bank thing ended up losing the Postal Service tons of money, but it didn't change any laws. What did change laws is a pretty ingenious revenge plot against junk mailers and debt collectors. You know how sometimes you get those postage-paid envelopes that want you to mail back things like credit card applications or some kind of promotional crap? Well, the way those work is that the company that sends that envelope is on the hook to pay the postage when the envelope arrives. So, some clever bastards figured out they could just attach the envelope to a brick or another heavy unwanted object and stick the company with the bill of mailing a heavy package instead of just a tiny letter. Eventually, the Postal Service caught on and added a stipulation that postage-paid envelopes cannot be used for unintended purposes. But these companies are still allowed to cram my mailbox full of credit card applications, coupons, and all sorts of garbage. Fantastic job, Postal Service. I love ya. Mwah. Number 3. A slave. Henry Box Brown, like every slave in the mid-1800s, wished to be delivered away from his chains when he worked in a tobacco factory in Virginia. But when his wife and daughter were sold to a plantation in North Carolina, he took action. He built a box for himself, addressed it to a famed abolitionist in Philadelphia, paid off a white shopkeeper to ship it, and climbed inside. After 27 hours of travel, spending extended periods upside down and contorted, he made it to freedom, and immediately got to work buying freedom for his family. Number 2. A government drone. So a college kid got a drone in the mail. No big deal, right? Well, if it had been the drone that he had ordered, maybe it would be no big deal. Instead of that, he got a $350,000 drone from the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration. Thankfully, the drone wasn't military. It was a Puma surveillance drone intended for monitoring ocean habitats and seabird habits, instead of blowing them up. The government blamed UPS for the handling error, but they got the drone back without much issue after the kid posted pictures of the drone on Reddit. Number 1. The Circleville letters. Nothing odd about a letter moving through the mail. That's what the mail is for. But in 1976, several people in Circleville, Ohio started receiving threatening letters postmarked from nearby Columbus. The letters contained detailed information about the recipients, right down to affairs and close personal secrets. These letters came after a huge number of the town's residents, but especially Mary and Ron Gillespie. Ron Gillespie received threats on his life and did in fact end up dead of a car accident. Police thought they'd trace the letters to their source and put a man Paul Forshaw in jail. But the letters continued, and it's not certain whether it was a copycat, an accomplice, or Forshaw was truly innocent. Forshaw himself even received one of the letters while he was in prison. The Circleville letters are now considered an unsolved mystery. This video was made possible by our fans over on Patreon. Thanks for your support, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.